So following Max Holloway's sensational KO and just overall masterclass that he put on against Justin Gaethje at UFC 300 in the BMF title fight, guys, I was riding with Max Holloway since the very beginning, the moment the fight was announced, and I had to make my own video reacting and discussing what just went down. And then first I'm going to talk about the performance of Max Holloway, what I saw that led me to really riding with Max the whole way. I'll touch on that a little bit. Then I'm also going to discuss what I think Max should do next, then what I think the UFC is going to plan for him to do next. So let's hop right into this. So first, what Max did against Justin Gaethje is pretty much almost identical to what I expected. Now, what did catch me off guard was the fact that we did not see Max Holloway switch stances at all, right? He was getting that lead leg chewed apart by Justin Gaethje, which did have me concerned as a Holloway fan in this matchup, because we saw in some of the Volkanovski fights, Max was very, very light on that lead leg, where he was still kind of in a tie stance, sort of, against Justin Gaethje, but he was a little bit wider in his base to where it was a lot harder to get that lead leg out of the way, which left me kind of confused, because I'm like, that seems like a little bit of a disaster here, Max, that we're kind of being so heavy on that lead leg. But by the same token, you can't compromise your stance too much when you're leaning into the boxing department as much as Max Holloway does. But really, guys, this fight came down to Max was just faster, and Justin Gaethje, as I predicted, was going to underestimate the power and elusiveness of one Max Holloway. And that was the difference in this fight. It's nothing that Justin Gaethje didn't do. It's just what Max Holloway was able to do. Now, when you go back and watch the fight, I just watched it back again this morning, you see a couple of different things. One, it was very evident the game plan of Justin Gaethje was going to be to chew up that lead leg, which I think we all were expecting him to do. And it was going to be stay defensively safe and invest in that leg kick. And then eventually, as the fight plays out, we neutralize the movement of Max Holloway and we're able to pressure him, close him down, and try to be the first people to get him out of there. And that's a similar game plan to what Alex Pineda has utilized against a guy like Israel Adesanya, who's a little bit faster, is a little more elusive, switches stances, does all these fancy little things. We know we're not the faster fighter, but we are the more powerful fighter, so to speak, and we're going to attack that leg. We're going to slow down the movement of Holloway. We're going to close him down, and then that's how we're going to get to Max and be able to try and get him out of there. The problem with that is I think they underestimated the durability and the toughness of Max Holloway, which, in all fairness, I can't believe Max Holloway's movement wasn't really compromised by the amount of leg kicks that he ate, because it was very evident to me coming into this fight, Justin Gaethje is a guy that throws really one and two shots at a time, right? He'll kind of fight behind that jab, which he tends to forget about at times, which he wasn't throwing a ton of jabs in this matchup, which was my concern coming into this, is that Gaethje forgets about the jab, and then he usually, after the first round, has to go to the stool, and Trevor Whitman's like, don't forget about your jab. Then he kind of puts it back on a little bit, and then he forgets about it again. And in a matchup with Max Holloway, I thought it was going to be paramount, one, to beat up the lead legs of Max Holloway, but don't just rely on that. Fight behind that jab, keep your chin tucked, and move forward, because if you let Max Holloway dictate the pace, if you let Max Holloway push forward, which is what Gaethje was allowing Max to do early in the fight, they waited too long to where Max started to gain that confidence. And Max Holloway is one of those guys, it's like an avalanche. The minute it starts to kind of run downhill and it kind of starts to break and then everything starts to flow, that's what Holloway does, man. You start to let him build that momentum to where he starts to tag you. He starts to get confident. He eats a shot from you and he's like, that's not as bad as I thought. It still hurt, but it's not as bad as I thought. And then he just starts to gain confidence to where he's more willing to stand and exchange. And we saw he was significantly faster than Justin Gaethje. We knew Justin Gaethje was going to land leg kicks in this matchup, guys. Like, he has some of the best low kicks we've ever seen inside of MMA. But he was blatantly just openly throwing them with almost nothing behind it and nothing before he was throwing it, to where it became a little bit predictable, to where Max Holloway then started to counter that by just moving forward and kind of throwing that little shovel uppercut you saw him sting Gaethje with. And then he decided at times to sit in the phone booth and throw shots. He was looking to counter Gaethje with that tight left hook we saw him throw, and then he was going to bite down and try to throw some right hands. At one point, he stunned Gaethje with a right hand, which I told you was going to happen, that they were going to underestimate the power of Max Holloway. As well as all of that in terms of away from some of the game plan aspects. The way Max Holloway looked at 155, I really don't think that he should go back to 45. And I know that I shouldn't say he shouldn't go back to 45. I should say right now, I would love to see Max Holloway try to go on a run at 55, right? Say Max even goes back down and fights Ilia Topuria. I know it's a huge fight, but what then? You have Volkanovski, who used to be the champion. It's already a division where you've kind of fought a lot of the contenders there, right? I mean, there's some other guys like Mobsar, he hasn't fought Emmett. Like, there's some other names out there. But to me, a whole new weight class at 155 with some outstanding fighters. Max's frame looked great at 55. He clearly has power in the weight class. And these people, oh, well, he just knocked him out at the end of the fight. He was hurting Gaethje with some of these right hands, man. Like, Max Holloway's, he has power, man. He showed that in the zombie fight. He was sitting on some shots a little bit more in this matchup, which was his feet were dug in a little bit more instead of being so kind of upright and very light on his feet. That was something I had highlighted coming into this, that Max does have power. He just doesn't dig his feet in, squat in, and drive and throw heavy into a lot of those shots. And we saw when he is able to do that, he can put people out. And while Justin Gaethje did do a lot of good things in this matchup, he started to kind of pour it on a little later. He started to gain some confidence. I think part of that as well was Max kind of adjusting to 155. I think that as the fight played out, we didn't see Max the same kind of buzzsaw in terms of the cardio that's continuing to pour on that pace. I think he got a little bit more tired than what he normally does, which is to be expected, carrying around, that extra size, that extra muscle, whatever you want to call it. But, Max Holloway overall looked fantastic at 155. He knew Justin Gaethje was going to dip and duck it and cover up. And that's one of the things that I've criticized Justin Gaethje for time in and time out. He has improved defensively in terms of the head movement. But one thing he tends to do is when people tend to close the distance, he gets a little uncomfortable. He dips, throws up a high guard, and wings crazy hooks. Max Holloway was more than prepared for it. He knew that he was winning that first round. In the final 10 seconds, you saw Gaethje start to get a little bit more aggressive, try to maybe steal that round back, and Holloway just spun around and threw a beautiful spinning back kick, broke the nose of Justin Gaethje. That's a tendency that Gaethje has had. You saw Poirier try to capitalize on it in the second Poirier-Gaethje fight. Mike Brown and in the corner of Poirier, they're like, he keeps ducking his head. Throw that knee, throw that kick, whatever. And Max Holloway was prepared for that. You even saw him attempt some knees at some points. So overall, Max Holloway looks sensational against Justin Gaethje. Now, I will say this. There are some matchups that are kind of scary at 155. But to me, that's what makes it so intriguing of Max Holloway staying at 155, right? We've already seen him at 145, man. We've seen him down at 45 against Volkanovski 3 times. We've seen him up against Yair. We've seen him against Ortega. We've seen him against most of those guys. To where at this point, I wish that Ilia Topuria was the 55 champ, because if he was, man, I would be so excited for that fight because I just love the way Max looked at 55. I like the way his frame looked. I thought he was in great shape, lean, powerful, strong, all together, while just looking even more durable, which sounds crazy to say. Like, I know Gaethje landed some really good shots on Max Holloway, but he just seemed to eat those things a little bit better than what he was in that Arnold Allen fight and in that Yair fight, which I know that at 45, obviously, is cutting a little bit more weight. I just get worried about that chin, right, where you're facing a power puncher in Topuria. You just put in all that effort to go up to 55, kind of change your frame, do all these different things. I would like to see him stay at 55. I also think the UFC, let's get into what I think could be next for Max, which is I think that the UFC, I think that they're going to probably give Max Holloway the winner of Michael Chandler versus Conor McGregor. And obviously, they're wanting that to be Conor McGregor. But in the worst case for the UFC, Michael Chandler would then beat Conor McGregor, which you could argue and say isn't as impressive as it used to be. I still think it's impressive because Conor's a big name. Michael Chandler might not walk around and be all cool, outside of fighting and be this BMF that people look at. But when he's in there fighting, his fighting style is BMF worthy, in my opinion. Michael Chandler has an incredibly entertaining fighting style. You know what I mean? Like, I think that he could definitely be someone that could be a contender for the BMF title. So I think the winner of Conor versus Michael Chandler towards maybe the back end of 2024 makes the most sense for Holloway's next move. And the reason for that being, as exciting as I think the Ilia Topuria versus Max Holloway fight is, it sounds like they're going to be set on Volkanovski taking on Ilia Topuria in a rematch. And Max Holloway's even been open saying, look, man, Volkanovski's reigned over the division. If he wants that rematch, he should absolutely get it. Now, that's not a fight that I really want to see because I don't want to see Volkanovski go right back into a rematch against a guy that is just a really awful matchup for Alexander Volkanovski and Ilia Topuria, because when you look at how it's like people say, well, Volkanovski's kind of a bad matchup for Max Holloway, that's how I feel about Topuria for Volkanovski. It's not to say that Volk can't go in there and get it done, but in a 5-round fight with Volkanovski and Topuria, it's just one of those things where Volk is going to have to be perfect for 25 minutes. He has to be to where Topuria can kind of get away with a little bit more because of the power he possesses, because of the overall skill set that Ilia presents to Volkanovski. It's not to say Volk can't get it done. I just think it's a very steep hill to climb, although I think that's the direction the UFC is going to go. I would love to see Max Holloway. He just was in a 5-round fight with, almost a 5-round fight with about a second or two to go. So technically a 5-round fight with Justin Gaethje. He got that leg beat up pretty good, right? So it's going to take some time for that to heal. Overall, can we argue that Max Holloway might have been the cleanest fighter to come out of a fight with Justin Gaethje? I mean, he took like almost, when you see the post-fight picture, it looks like he took almost no damage, which is crazy because every time someone goes in there against Justin Gaethje, it looks like they got into a car crash. It looks like they put on a Halloween costume. Like they're just bloody, battered, bruised, all sorts of different things. It's like when you see a person after a Gaethje fight, you're like, what the hell happened to you? You know what I mean? And Max Holloway looked pretty good following the matchup, which is crazy. Max put on a masterclass. His movement is brilliant. I said from the get-go, guys, his new fighting style that he has found, where he implements more kicks, where he was even attacking that lead leg of Justin Gaethje. He was implementing some of the body kicks, some head kicks. All those different things gave Gaethje a lot more to think about than the old Holloway that was in a wide boxing stance, that was very content on just moving forward the whole time, being in range and being there to get hit. Where now he's a lot more elusive. He's okay moving backwards, side to side, switching stances, all sorts of different things. In my opinion, Max Holloway should take on the winner of Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler, depending on what happens there, and then they go from there, because I really like the way Max Holloway looked at 55. I keep saying it, guys. His frame, his power, everything just looked perfect in that Justin Gaethje fight, to where I'm like, I need to see more. I want to see more, and it's a new slate of competition at 155. Think of all the matchups. I know Islam Makhachev is kind of a nightmare matchup for everybody, but we have him and Poirier getting ready to fight, so it's like there's some things going on there where maybe if Poirier somehow pulls off the upset, I mean, I think Islam would probably get a rematch. Like, I know there's a trilogy with Max where Poirier's up 2-0, so I don't know how much you can sell that one, but we have Islam, we have Poirier, there's, maybe a rematch down the line with Gaethje, we got, Charles Oliveira, we have Arman Tsarukyan. Like, there's some different guys at 155 pounds where this is looked at as one of the best divisions, and I know that Rafael Fiziev is a guy who, he lost to Gaethje, but that's another guy that's got a banger fight style, man, where I think Max Holloway should go this BMF route and kind of play that up for a little bit, right? I don't think he should just rush into a title shot, rush into a title fight. I think Max is in a position with this BMF belt, be smart, and take some of those matchups that are exciting. Fight those other strikers where you're going to have those entertaining matchups, which that's why I'm proposing that the winner of Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler fights Max Holloway for the BMF belt to headline a huge card towards the end of the year. And of course, if Conor McGregor wins that thing, it's Holloway versus McGregor 2 for the BMF belt. It'd be one of the biggest fights the UFC could make. No doubt about it. That would be because the UFC, in my opinion, what they have done with Max Holloway, you saw Dana say, everyone posts this knockout and all this and that. It's bigger than just posting that because it was a crazy moment. There were some crazy moments at UFC 300. Obviously, this was the craziest. You don't think that it's in Dana's mind like, wow, we put Chandler and McGregor together, depending on what happens at the BMF. I always said that I think if whoever won this between Gaethje and Holloway was possibly going to be next in line to take on McGregor or Chandler in a big BMF title fight, presuming that McGregor wins. That's what the UFC's hoping, so they can get this huge matchup. And you have Conor McGregor fight another striker for essentially a title. That gives Conor McGregor the opportunity to fight for a title. These are my thoughts. I really want to see Max Holloway stay at 155, but if he does go back down to 45 and take on Ilia Topuria, it's a scary matchup. It's a scary matchup because, like I said, we saw Max get clipped with some shots against Arnold. We saw him get clipped with some shots from the Korean Zombie, where I just think his chin was already amazing, but it kind of went to a different level at 55. You saw the shots the way I know that he got kind of knocked down by Gaethje, but outside of that, he was never really stunned and rattled at all really in that matchup. I like what we saw from Max Holloway. Obviously, a huge fight between him and Ilia Topuria is on the horizon, but I don't know. I don't know, guys, because I really like what I saw from Max at 55. But I want to hear from you all down in the comments. Like this video. Comment your take below. Were you impressed with Max Holloway? What would you like to see the UFC do with him next here for his next matchup? Subscribe to the channel if you have not already. I appreciate you all. See you next time.